So the next section is choosing a statistical measure for a given situation, choosing the best one, I should say. This is topic 8, section 6. And I did a little preview of this, and I'm really excited for the Animation Plus here. So wait till you get a load of this. That's just fun.
Which statistical measure is most useful to describe a given situation? Think about this question during the lesson. Gary reviews the scores on his weekly quizzes. What measure should Gary use to get the best sense of how well he is doing on his weekly quizzes? You can organize Gary's scores using a dot plot.
All right, let's see how this goes. Drag the dots into the area above to make a dot plot. Okay, so looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 185, 98. All right, so I guess we'll take these scores in red. So we have an 88, 85, 86, 87, 88, and an 87, and a 91, and a 65. I guess Gary had a bad day. A 90, and 85, I guess Gary had his Wheaties the next couple of quiz scores because he got a 98, and another 98, a 92, and a 93. All right. So you can see, I hope that you can see, most of Gary's scores are right here, kind of between 85 and 93. This one way over here we call an outlier. It's a piece of data that is way different than the other pieces of data. It lies outside of what the other pieces of data are. So we call it an outlier.
How does a dot plot make analyzing the spread and clustering of data in a set easier?
So you can see just by the visual representation what they're talking about there.
You can see points that are far from other values and whether any values are close together. Find the mean, median, mode, and outliers. What is the mean of the data?
Select your answer.
So remember that the mean is you add all of the pieces of data together and then you divide by that number of pieces of data. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Looks like they do not give it. Well, let's see if they do it. I'm sure they do. Oh, no, they don't do it.
The mean is 88 and 7/10. The median is 90 and 5/10. The mode is 98, and the outlier is 65. The outlier lies outside most of the other values in the data set.
All right, so let's go over how they did that, even though I didn't do it in the last slide. They would have added those scores together and divided by 10. I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep. Add those together and divide by 10, you'll get 88.7. The median, just real quickly, just to make sure that you remember that, get rid of the first and the last, the second and the second to last, the third and the third to last, the fourth and the fourth to last. So the median is the middle number in all of that data. In this case, looks like it's 91. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. Okay, so yeah, so it would have been between these two. I'm not sure what I did incorrectly, but so you find the mean of 90 and 91 to get 90.5, and then the mode is the one that occurs most often, right? So 98 occurs most often, and then this outlier. outlier, the piece of data that's way outside.
Look for clusters, gaps, and outliers when considering what the measures of center tell you about Gary's scores. The values in the data set.
Just a quick word about that measure of center she just talked about. It is in the title here, and the measures of center are when we're looking for an average, and we want to see how closely the scores kind of come together, right? So we look for mean, median, range, and mode, and then there are other averages that look for what we call variability, how much the data varies from one to another, and that's when we did the the range and the mean absolute deviation. Those are measures of variability, while mean, median, and mode are measures of center.
Are spread out. There are gaps in the values on the dot plot. The mode, 98, makes his typical score seem better than it really is. The mean, 88.7, is affected by the outlier. It makes his typical score seem lower than it really is. The median, 90.5, is in the middle of the cluster of his typical scores. The median, 90.5, best describes his performance. It includes the outlier and falls within the cluster of his typical scores. The mean and the median are close in value. How else could you argue for the median as the best measure of center? Most of Gary's scores are 90 and above, so the median better reflects what he usually scores. Now you know how to decide which statistical measure is most useful in a given situation.
So that kind of review of each of those was pretty powerful. Let's go back to that. I think that was well
Center.
worth.
This includes the form best 90, the median 90.5, best tip the middle point. It makes his typical score. The mean 88.48, the mode 98 on the dot plot. Values in the data set are spread out. There are gaps in the values on the dot plot. The mode 98 makes his typical score seem better than it really is. The mean 88.7 is affected by the outlier. It makes his typical score seem lower than it really is. The median, 90.5, is in the middle of the cluster of his typical scores. The median, 90.5, best describes his performance. It includes the outlier and falls within the cluster of his typical scores.
All right.
The mean